Alright, this is the first video about urbanization. I have three here, two called urbanization. One is kind of culture around turn of the century. So, urbanization, who's calling the shots? Now, immigrants came to this country thinking it was a democracy, it was freedom, but there was actually a whole lot of little things going on here. First off, we have something called urban sprawl. This just meant that the cities built up around the factories, and so people moved there, and so you had a massive number of people in a tiny little area. Now this is pre-sanitation standards, things like that. There's no running water, there's no indoor plumbing. That's going to kind of come a long time. And so you have these cesspools of breeding ground of disease and everything like that, crime, pickpockets, and that all kind of happens because you went to where the cities were. Now, these immigrants were put into what were called tenement housing. Now, a tenement they sometimes called them barbells because they look like a barbell, little area in the middle and then kind of on the sides. They would pack these tenements with massive numbers of people. In one little room, you might have anywhere from 10 to 16 people in a room, and within an entire building, you're talking at least a couple, probably close to 100. And again, if somebody comes in with a cough, this is pretty kind of just modern medicine. That cough could develop into pneumonia, and then you basically have a big outbreak or a flu outbreak. In fact, we did have a very big flu outbreak around World War I that killed a lot of people. But tenement housing, they overcharge them, they're not safe, and they became breeding grounds for disease. But when you're an immigrant, this is what you had to live with. Now, to get out of the state, maybe what could happen there, you needed to get involved with a political machine. Now, a political machine controlled political activities and parties in the city. It was ran generally by somebody called a party boss. And you can see there the ward bosses, the party bosses, made sure that their candidates were elected and made sure the city government worked for their advantage. They did this by offering kickbacks and things like that for these people. And so it's very corrupt. And this is before the secret ballot, so you'd have that enforcer there at the place going, hey, well, why are you going to vote for them? It's a shame what happened to your mother's house. Well, nothing happened to your mother's house. They're foreshadowing what's going to happen to your mother's house. So political machines, party bosses, are a really big part of urban politics and corruption during the Gilded Age. Now, the biggest political machine was called Tammany Hall in New York City. And Tammany Hall actually functioned almost to World War II, guys. About 60 years, they controlled who was elected, who got the jobs in New York City, and that's a lot of power. But at the time we're talking here, turn of the century stuff, the guy in charge was Marcy. I know that's an intimidating name. So he probably went by his nickname Boss Tweed. Now Boss Tweed was the guy pulling the strings behind this movie. Maybe to think about this, if you've ever seen The Departed with Jack Nicholson and Leonardo DiCaprio, Jack Nicholson's character has control over the city because he has people in the police doing his bidding because he's helped them out with a situation. So in a political machine, you basically, as an immigrant, went to a saloon, a bar. Most men at this time drank to get away, drank the problems away, drank a lot of things, and we'll kind of cover that later on with progressivism. But you would go in there and you would meet somebody and they'd go, hey, somebody can help you, and all you have to do is make sure you do vote. Now, there was no one-time voting. You voted a lot. So they said, well, we're going to give you $5, and $5 was a lot back then. And we want you to vote 5 times. And in return, we're going to make sure that you get a better job, and potentially you're going to help your family survive another day, another week, another month, another year. And people took them up on this. And these things operated for years, called grafts and kickbacks and everything like that. No one really knew about this until a man named Thomas Nast came along. Now, Thomas Nast, we can call him a muckraker. It makes no sense to you now, will in progressivism. And he made political cartoons depicting this paper tiger, this Boss Tweed. And it was put into a magazine called Puck. Now, if you know anything about literature, which maybe you don't, Puck was a character from William Shakespeare's A Midsummer's Night Dream, and he was a mischievous little imp, a little devil, a little rascal. So Puck magazine is going to do stuff that's kind of, going against the grain of society and saying you need to be paying attention to this. And so people began to look at this. This actually angered Boss Tweed very much. He was actually quoted once as saying, "My constituents, the people who put me in office, can't help but see your darn cartoons. They can't read. I don't care what they read. But they can see those cartoons, and they can see you're making fun of me, so you need to stop." But Thomas Nast did not, and kind of exposed things about political machines. Now, as I said before, what did immigrants get in return for votes? You can see there it is. You're going to get out of this perpetual cycle of disease and death, and get a better job, help somebody out, help your family out. But that's what they got out of it. Now, I have one more video about this one, and I'll show you that one in a second.